I'm Gerald Clark. I'm the author of 2 books. My first book, written in August of 2013, is The Anunnaki of Nibiru, Mankind's Forgotten Creators, Enslavers, Destroyers, Saviors, and Hidden Architects of the New World Order. Then in 2015, in January, I released The Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising, which picks up where the Anunnaki of Nibiru left off and answers some of the very important questions that many of the fans raised about the Anunnaki. As a result of writing the first book, shortly thereafter I was contacted by folks in Hollywood to turn my book into a movie. And I hadn't really thought about that was a possibility until that occurred. And so I got that in my consciousness that maybe this story needs to be told in a broader venue than on a book, via a book. Shortly thereafter, I was contacted by a gentleman who had spent a lot of time publishing in the space, named Neil Freer. And he had written a book called Sapiens Rising recently around the time that I had published the Anunnaki of Nibiru. And he contacted me and we discussed where this story should go. Given the fact that he was peers with Zechariah Sitchin, and this topic had been on his plate since the late 70s, along with Sitchin. And so we discussed it, and he shared his first movie script with me while I was on vacation with Krista in Hawaii, of all places. And we read the script on the plane on the way back home, and got very excited about being exposed to what a screenplay looked like, what it looked like in a proper format and final draft, and so I studied it for a while. And Neil encouraged me to try to get some traction with it, so I rewrote some of the script and spent about 6 months rewriting it, and got it in front of a couple of investors that were very excited about telling that story. So this was all back in 2013 and 2014. So back and forth I went with producers and people in the film and video industry, which I was very unfamiliar with, so I was kind of catching up and doing my homework. And the bottom line is, I realized that by the time I got in front of investors, they expected me to have a movie trailer that to put together with what they wanted, with all of the special effects and such. I had it priced, and it was approximately $75,000 just for a 3-minute trailer. And so it kind of stopped me in my tracks at that time. I got busy with some other things, doing radio shows and podcasts, and one thing led to another, and the idea of doing a movie resurfaced. And I had written a 3-part series outline for the movie back in 2013 as a rough idea of how I would partition a movie that told our history from such a long duration. And so I started rewriting the screenplay in 2016. I think it was May. And I don't know where my inspiration came from, but I felt it pretty strong, kind of like writing the book. And it felt like, well, maybe it's time now, because I felt like I'd been put on hold, and I'd learned a lot of lessons going back and forth with the movie industry. And so by September, I was pretty close to finishing, and I recruited some help from Matthew LaCroix, who was working on the Anunnaki series with us, a 7-episode series that we were producing with about 5 or 6 people. And so that wasn't due to finish until December of this last year, but the movie script had been completed, and Matt and I were excited about it, yet there it sat. And so I was trying to figure out, how do I go from another completed movie script to the next phase? How do you get some traction? And I knew the trailer was hanging over my head. So about that time, we were expecting a shipment from the United States via a trailer with our mail and Christmas gifts, and my birthday was in December, so it was all kind of combined. Well, par for the course, about the 26th or so, we got notification from our shipping company that the trailer that was being shipped from Texas to Mexico had been stolen, including signed copies of Nibiru and the Legend of the Anunnaki by Pat Broderick, who I was working very closely with. Those copies were in there. T-shirts that we had with character artwork that we had paid for on those shirts. So we were kind of devastated that this was gone. Well, something magic happened right around my birthday. I felt very inspired to look into another way to bring this story to life. And while I was doing that, I ran across several videos on how Game of Thrones was being put together, in particular because I had been asked to write a TV series and a movie targeting the Discovery Channel so that they had an answer to the Game of Thrones. So I had gone through and written all this in addition to doing the screenplay. I had written this in the background, targeting those folks. And so in that process, I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, obviously.
I forgot. What was I going to say?
You're talking about Game of Thrones, how it's coming together.
Oh.
But just hold on, have a sip and don't
Okay.
just pause for a second. And then give me the cup.
Okay. Yeah. So using the Game of Thrones as a reference point of what a TV series, a successful one, could look like, even though it was on cable with HBO, I believe, it caused me to start looking at how people were making movies in the modern era, and it seemed like more and more of it was being done with special effects, CGI, and 3D animation. And that kind of encouraged me because I ran across a YouTube video on how the Game of Thrones was made when they took away all of the CGI so that you could see behind the scenes. And it turned out more than 80% of that movie was made with CGI. And it got me to thinking about what could I do to bring my screenplay to life using CGI, using 3D animation, with the modern tools that were out there, and could I afford them? So I started looking into this, and I ended up with two main candidates to play with. One was Autodesk Maya, which is a very, very sophisticated, high-end engineering 3D modeling tool. And the other one was a set of tools from Reallusion that just happened to be on sale, called iClone. And it was a bundled package, iClone 7, that included many, many tools for telling your story. And they were touting the software as a means for modern movie makers to tell their story. So I started looking at movies online, seeing what people had done with CGI. Some of it was good, some of it was crap. But a lot of what was going on was the main crux of what was showing up in big films like Doctor Strange and Lucy and major films that a lot of it was based on the special effects that they were able to create. So movie magic ended up being at the forefront. How do you create movie magic? Well, it turns out that iClone bundled HitFilm Pro with their package, and I didn't know anything about HitFilm Pro because we were still using Filmora to stitch film pieces together for our other episodes. So these were way more advanced tools than what we had. Anyway, so by January 5th, the deadline for buying the iClone bundle at the special price expired, and I made the decision that this was, based on the price, it was worthwhile to attempt to prototype this movie in this manner, and if nothing more, I would end up with a trailer and probably some very advanced storyboarding of what I had in mind for the movie. So January 5th, I installed iClone, played around, did my first solo flight without reading the manual, without anything, and shortly thereafter, after realizing the power of this tool, I knew that I could tell the Odyssey Ki story, which started out as a screenplay called The Anunnaki Genesis, but it ended up having the names changed to protect the innocent. In particular, it was because of the request by the Discovery Channel networks to obscure the Anunnaki names so that we would have a good chance of not being shut down. So that led to this full version of the screenplay. And as of January, once I installed iClone, I decided, well, how hard would it be to just open this up and start going scene by scene, find the sets in Google SketchUp, in 3D Warehouse, and see if I couldn't put this story together myself. And at least I would know what I was in for if I were to hire other people to help. So one thing led to another, and as of today, I'm just about done with Act 1, Scene 9. There are 11 scenes in the first act, and I realized how much work is involved, and I know that there are people out there that are excited about doing this, and I think it's time to recruit some of them without killing myself trying to do it all myself.
So specifically, what am I looking for? As a VP of engineering, I ran many development teams that produced some very complex products in free space optics, in high definition TV. And I'm quite sure after looking at the market and seeing the folks that are out there, many of whom are unemployed, that I could assemble a team and complete this project within a year. My goal is to have it completed by the end of this year, at least the first rough draft. And it may not seem plausible to many that that's possible, but when you see the talent that's out there and what they're able to achieve in very short order, I think that I can assemble a crew and make this happen. Now, there are some issues that I want to explore that cost significant more money, and that is bringing in real actors into some of the sets to replace the complete 21 character avatar set that is allocated in this movie. And so I think blurring the lines between real actors and avatars that are so well rendered that it's very hard to tell the difference under the right circumstances, the lighting, the scene setting. So that's another avenue that I want to explore. So with the right funding, I think I would like to encourage a mainstream actor to participate in this movie. So yes, I'm only asking for $50,000 to start, but that's really seed money to get some other people on this project so that some of these tasks can start being accomplished and the ball can be moved out of court much more quickly than just me by myself. So that's the plan. I have many people in my network over the 4 years now since I wrote my first book. And many of them know and have been involved in the efforts that I've put forth to bring this story to humanity. And this is a very, very important story, more so than any story that I've ever come across in my life. And that's why it's my mission to take it to a venue, whether it's a TV series or a full motion video, which this one right now is targeted for 2 hours. And other parts to it. This is just the first part. Like I said, there are 3 parts of this. So I see this going on for many years, introducing folks to this story and also targeting the younger generation with a game. And I'm not a gamer and I don't play video games. My kids did, and they were big fans of it. I've seen everything that they played and the technology involved. So it just so happens that as part of my effort, I've invested in getting some motion capture equipment. I bought the Xbox One kinetic sensor for trying to refine some of the motion, and I have invested in some motion libraries as well. So there's a lot to bringing the story to life and making it as realistic as possible, and I plan on doing that. And adding actual actors into the segment that would replace an avatar or substitute for an avatar at places is definitely something that I want to do. So I want to encourage everyone that wants to see this story, make it to a big screen, make it to a TV series, possibly be a series with Netflix, through Marvel Studios, for instance, that would have extreme interest in this kind of story, especially given the fact that Pat Broderick, a legend from Marvel Studios and DC Comics, is close friends of mine and actually did the first character artwork for the initial inception that we did in writing the screenplay so that we could at least be in a position to approach an investor. So we're playing big, and we invite you to come and play with us. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this video.